I'm Von Biggs, and let's queer up health. Survey finds Americans often underreport sexual history to intimate partners due to stigma. Tonight, we are talking about something that continues to shape how people date, communicate, and even judge one another, and that is the question of sexual history. A new report highlighted by Vice is shedding light on what Americans say versus what they report when it comes to lifetime partners. According to the article by Ashley Fike, a survey of more than 2,200 Americans found that people report an average of 20 lifetime sexual partners. But that number drops significantly to about 9 when they are directly speaking to a partner. As Fike writes, nearly 3 in 10 respondents admitted they've intentionally lowered their number, while only a very small percentage say they've exaggerated upward. The gap tells us something important about stigma and perception. Dr. Evan Goldstein, who was interviewed in the article, said, quote, "We've been conditioned to believe that a person's sexual history says something about their value or character," end quote. For LGBTQ plus communities, those layers of judgment can be even more complex, depending on identity and lived experience. The report revealed that gay respondents reported a significantly higher average number of partners compared to heterosexual respondents. From a public health perspective, this is where the conversation becomes critical. Dr. Goldstein encourages a shift in the conversation. Instead of asking a partner for a number, he suggests asking questions like, when were you last tested? How do you approach intimacy? What are your boundaries? Fike also writes that a number often reflects how much shame someone has been taught to carry. This shame can become a barrier. It can stop people from disclosing risk, from getting tested, and from seeking care when they need it most. I found it was very interesting reading this study or this article, because one of the things that said in there were the people that were interviewed after their partner left the room, that they said they had intentionally lowered the number, that they did it because their partner was in the room. And I just found that very fascinating, and that they're risking on the level of 9 as body count, as we mentioned in the beginning, right? So for 3 or 4 years now, I've worked with the local colleges here where I go into the classrooms and I teach about HIV and STI. And there's a quiz that we do at the beginning of the class that talks about your sexual risk. And that's based off your number of sexual partners. So I'm going to use, for an example, I'm going to pick Broward College, because this survey or this quiz online, it's called your sexual risk behavior. They have all the college campuses in the country in it. So what you have to do is you have to identify how many sexual partners you had. So we use, a Jack as an example in the room. And so in this case, I'm going to use 9 because it talked about how they lowered it to 9. And then you have to estimate how many sexual partners those 9 people have had. So, which you may not know, right? But you have to guess. So we're using the same number, 9. So in essence, you're thinking what? You're exposed to 81 people, which is what most people do. They calculate the numbers. No. So if you had 9 sexual partners and they each had 9, your sexual risk of exposure, meaning STIs, HIV, things like that, is actually 597,870 people.
Yeah, because 9 times 9 times 9 times 9.
Right. So that is if you took Broward College campus, that's 1,355% of the college campus, which meant you slept with everybody on the college campus. I don't even know how many times. And that's also 99% of the entire population of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wow. That's incredible.
Right? So it just shows that and it looks at the 6 degrees of separation is the way they calculate. That's the formula they use for it. But it does show how someone who has something that could pass it to this and how it can pass to this person. And it just talks about how your risk of being exposed, especially if you're doing unprotected sex.
I mean, I remember growing up and, being in the locker room and the guys would be like, overinflating the numbers because they didn't want to, be the uncool one. But girls will underinflate because they want to be seen as desirable. And then I always tell people in the gay world, we're 1 bed sheet separated from each other. And I look at it as, if somebody said, I have had a bunch of partners, I'm like, good, you're experienced.
In our world, yes.
That's how but I mean, just in general, I think, I like the way the doctor phrased it. And instead of saying what's your body count, it doesn't really matter because you could sleep with one person and still get HIV.
Right.
Oh. You can sleep with one person and still get an STI. Yes. So it's not about...
You don't have to sleep with somebody to get an STI either.
Correct. So that's true.
Today.
That's true.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not really about how many people you've slept with or kissed or whatever you've done. Or, you know, I've only done oral. You can still get an STI doing that. It really more is about when were you tested and, you know, and those types of things. And so it's just a matter of changing the conversation.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, there's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.